We are often defined by our culture, appearance, values, and beliefs. These are only a portion of the aspects that make up our identity. When most people think of identity, they think of sexual orientation, ethnicity, and gender. However, an important part of what makes you who you are that is frequently overlooked is your bodily identity. Many struggle to have a positive bodily identity, and none more so than women. Women do not have to be born with female genitalia for them to be women, and not everyone who has a menstrual cycle or female reproductive organs identifies as a woman. So long as someone identifies as a woman, they are a woman. The reproductive rights of women are a social issue that has been afflicting women for decades. The lack of access or availability to contraceptives and feminine hygiene products lead to the choices of women already being made for them. Thus, they lose a part of themselves and their bodily identity suffers from it. In order for you to have a more deep understanding to feminism and the rights women are fighting for, we'll discuss the definition of some terms. According to Oxford bibliographies, bodily identity refers to a person's self-image, to one's beliefs about the sort of person one is and how one differs from others. A simple way to see that is that the bodily identity is the image someone has of themselves, their self-image. Autonomy is the ability one has to make their own decisions. If you have a strong autonomy, you are more likely to have a strong bodily identity. An inability to make one's own decisions leads to people to have low self-worth and a low self-image. My idea of feminism is the belief of the social, political, and economic equality of all genders, which is not what most people see feminism as. It's important to note that feminism is the equality of all sexes, not just elevating women to be higher than men in society. Reproductive rights are rights which involve the health of the reproductive system and organs and the issue of choice when it comes to children. Contraceptives are methods in which to prevent pregnancy, which falls under both the health of the reproductive system and the choice in having children. And feminine hygiene products are products used by women during their menstrual cycle, such as pads, tampons, menstrual cups, among others. Most people are surprised to hear that the birth control pill was invented in 1960. That's because it's hard to imagine a time without it. After the invention, women were finally able to control their own fertility. They had more autonomy with their bodies. The access to contraceptives plays a major role in the young woman's personal identity. It comes from the feelings of autonomy and choice. Everyone has the right to privacy under the Constitution. This also applies to minors. Adult women are not the only ones that want to have bodily autonomy and be able to decide for themselves when they have a baby. Minors are having a hard time getting access to contraceptives due to the parental consent law. An article from the Harvard Law Review Journal discusses the issue, stating, "Teenage motherhood involves a host of problems, including adverse physical and psychological effects upon the minor and her baby, the continuing stigma associated with unwed motherhood, and the need to drop out of school." End quote. The stigma surrounding her can potentially cause distress in her self-image. Minors will continue to have sex regardless if they have proper education or proper protection. The best way to prevent teen pregnancy would be to properly educate minors on safe sex and give them access to contraceptives. The autonomy of the minor is challenged by this law that prevents them from accessing important health products. The minor may feel as though their values or rights are not being listened to or taken seriously. That can have drastic effects on one's self-image and identity. However, being a minor is not the only obstacle women face when it comes to access to contraceptives. Some women can't afford contraceptives because their insurance companies don't cover them. The article, "Changes in State Prescription Contraceptive Mandates for Insurers: The Effect on Women's Contraceptive Use from the Perspectives on Sexual and Reproductive Health" journal, investigated whether or not mandating contraceptive coverage in insurance companies would increase the amount of women using contraceptives. The investigation discovered that yes, when insurance companies are mandated to cover contraceptives, more women would use contraceptives. The lack of access to contraceptives can lead to unintended pregnancies, which takes away the woman's bodily autonomy and changes her self-image. No longer is she herself. She also has to share her body with another. Her decisions do not just affect her now. Women can begin to judge themselves in a negative way as a result of these unintended pregnancies, causing severe damage to their self-image. But contraceptives are not just the only thing women have limited accessibility to. They're also struggling with having access to feminine hygiene products. Around the world, there are women who are struggling with accessing feminine hygiene products or menstrual products. Even here in America, there are women who struggle to get the necessity. Girls without access to feminine hygiene products often miss out on school days because they don't have the proper products that allow them to continue on their daily lives. The high cost of menstrual products in parts of the world causes a lack of access to these products. Without these products, girls cannot attend school on the days they have their period, causing them to miss out on education and important social interactions. According to UNESCO, more girls are not enrolled in secondary education or middle and high school as they are enrolled in primary education. This correlates to the fact that, as Medicine Net explains, girls usually get their periods between 8 and 15 years of age, which is usually around the time of secondary education. The lack of quality education of young girls due to insufficient amounts of menstrual products available to them creates a sense of inadequacy. Girls who do not graduate have a hard time finding decent jobs and rely on their families for support. They feel as though they cannot take care of themselves and thus have negative self-images. Their feelings of autonomy become limited. All around the world, there are women who cannot afford feminine hygiene products because they are too expensive. This is in part due to the tax on feminine hygiene products such as tampons and pads called the tampon tax. The article, Bleeding Women Dry, Tampon Taxes and Menstrual Inequity, argues for the tampon tax to be repealed because it is discriminatory against women. Feminine hygiene products are seen as luxury items and as such are taxed like them. But this causes women to feel as though they are supposed to have control over their bodily functions when they don't, making them feel as though they have a deficiency in their bodies. The author of the article states, "The idea that menstruation symbolizes weakness and dirtiness is a symptom of sexism and gender discrimination. Because of the discriminatory nature of the tax, girls are ashamed of their periods, and that shame can lead to issues of gender identity and how one sees themselves. And shame has a major impact on one's self-image. A woman from Sierra Leone, Africa, expressed her feelings on the subject to the Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council about how her and her sisters hide their menstrual products under beds due to their shame. It is important for young girls and women around the globe to have the ability to continue to go to school and work, uninterrupted by a biological cycle that they have no control over. In order to achieve that, we must give all these women the access to menstrual products by providing them in countries where they have no access, and by decreasing or even eliminating the tampon tax. Every inch of who we are is determined by our identity, because it stems from so many aspects of us. But the way we see ourselves is probably one of the most influential parts of us. The bodily identity of a woman comes from the choices she makes, and with the lack of access to contraceptives and feminine hygiene products, her choices become limited. Her decisions were made for her, thus a part of her identity is taken away. How can she grow and change as a person if she's not given the choice?